Okay, folks, so the only difference between salary and slavery is at least the slave knows that it's not free. It doesn't matter really now anymore anyway, because the robots are taking over. So I believe anyway. I've been looking over that for the last couple of years. And I finally decided, I had a look the other day, went onto a recruitment website. What was the first question that was asked when I went onto the website? Are you a robot? So I pressed, no, I'm not a robot. Uploaded my CV, and the answer I got back, sorry, no jobs matches your search criteria. So the robots are getting all the jobs this day of AI and chatbots and ChatGPT. But what I'm going to do now is we're going to get you all uncomfortable. Today we're going to examine, is change the right thing to do? So, do you two know each other? No. Do you two know each other? No. All strangers here? Do you two know each other? No. So, and there's three of you here. Do you two know each other? You chat to each other, and I'll chat to you. So what I want you to do, 1 minute each way. So one person tells their story to the other person. After a minute, swap over, and we'll see what comes out of this, okay? So I have 5 key points today. And the reason I've written down 5 points is that at least if you get too bored listening to me, at least you know how long more you've left to go. So we've done that part. Just skip back. Just going to ask is, how many of you have told a lie in the last 12 months? Be honest. Not quite 100%. Small hand going up there. Is that hand gone up? What about in the last month? The last week? Few hands gone up. Shall I dare to ask the last 24 hours? Went up slightly, did it? We'll frame it a different way. How many of you, when you're meant to be going somewhere, you picked up the phone, you said, nearly there, nearly there. You haven't even left the house. Yep. We're all very honest people. How many of you have texted while driving? Oh. I'm very proud of it too, I notice. We'll ask another question. How many of you haven't washed your hands after using the public toilets? You're prouder of the fact that you could have done something that could have killed somebody. Imagine that. Texting while driving. Okay, so we've established that we all lie. And believe it or not, in the last 2 minutes when I got you all to talk to each other there, statistically, 85% of you told at least 3 lies in that minute. You've been honest now? We do that. We lie. We put our best foot forward. We withhold some of the truth about ourselves. We put the best part of ourselves forward. But when we're talking about change, we lie to ourselves. Maybe we know we're lying to ourselves. Maybe we don't know we're lying to ourselves. When we are thinking of a career change, you know where I'm going there. You go back to your childhood and you think about, when you were growing up, what's going to make me an upstanding person in the community? What sort of a job am I supposed to have? Am I going to be a doctor? Am I going to be a nurse? Fireman? Am I going to be a thief? Good, honest job? An actor or an artist? Anybody that follows their passion? It's a tough role to go down, and the mammies are saying, when are you going to get a real job? So we build our sense of self, and sometimes the hardest truth to ask is the truth that you ask from yourself. We build that, first of all, when we're born, so it's our family networks. So we build the world around us, starting at the very start with our family. Our community then shapes us as well. Do you know that if you put your head above your station too much, somebody's going to smack you back down? Who do you think you are? Do you know, we've all, see the smiles there, people are familiar with that. The institutions around us, so do you know, the church we went to, marriage, local government, school, they're all the institutions that shape who society wants you to be and who you think society wants you to be. Social norms, depends on what part of the world you come from. Do you know, if you're Irish, we were very much kept under the thumb. Historical forces definitely shape us as well. Do you know, we have rivalries that we like or we dislike. I mean, they're all the same people as us, but we dislike them for some various reason. I mean, in Ireland, we didn't like the lads that came from Dunlow. And your general landscape can also shape who you believe you are yourself as well. I mean, did you grow up on a farm? Are your hands calloused? Do you know that can shape your belief in yourself? Or did you grow up the son or daughter of a lawyer? Do you know that's a completely different landscape as well. That's where I grew up. Beautiful place, Donegal. And back when I was growing up, I suppose realistically the purview was tourism or fishing. I didn't fancy freezing my ass off in the Atlantic, so I went off and I studied hotel management. And that's where I spent my early career years. The big smoke, the bright lights, I enjoyed it. It was great fun. My first career change came when I was about 26, 27, because I kind of wanted to settle down. And the late nights and the early mornings and the long hours, it wasn't... it was a price that I didn't want to pay. So I went looking for a real job after that. But while I was looking for a real job, I needed to earn some money. So going back to where I grew up and how the locality shaped us, we did a lot of stuff ourselves. At home, I did all the painting, the wallpaper, and a bit of carpentry, stuff like that. So the logical thing was go down the road to the neighbour, do you want a job done? So that grew from just doing a few jobs into a business that I've run for the last 20 years. In fact, I'm still a painter and decorator by day. Not so much now, but I still do it, and I'm lucky. I enjoy it. But as I hit my 40s, the reason for my second career change was I realised, you know, by the time I'm 60, do I still want to be climbing ladders? Now, I always had an interest, going back to the hotel management days, I always had an interest in people, and I always felt like I was the psychologist behind the bar, you know, counselling the couples. I'm going to tell a story that somebody here might know who I'm talking about, so I won't mention names. I mean, there was one guy I was talking to one night, and he was 65 years of age, and he had a ball in his eyes. What's wrong with you? I'm just 65 years of age, and I'm still afraid to go home to my mother drunk. Do you know, so that sparked off my interest in psychology. So I studied psychology, started in 2016. I did psychology in Maynooth, and I've just recently completed a postgraduate in workplace wellness. So when I talk to companies, I talk to them about retaining people. And when I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking to you about change. And the theory behind either change or staying with a company, it's kind of the same, because there is a price to be paid for staying. There's also a price to be paid for changing. So how many of you are here to change career today? There's a few of you are changing career. Changing job? A few more hands going up there. Who's here with a friend just having a little look around? There's nobody. There's always one or two in the audience. And maybe if you are here just having a look, what you see today might spark the interest in you to maybe have a look a little bit further. So the price to be paid for changing, I go to my own story again, use myself as an example. With kids, bills, mortgage, it just wasn't an option to do college full-time, even though I wanted to. But where there's a will, there's a relative. Where there's a will, there's a way. So I looked up at short modules that I did. Springboard, great place to start. Some of the local colleges and universities do short off-campus courses. I did a few of them. So I've built up my profile over the last 5 or 6 years. So any of you that are thinking of doing a drastic change from what you're doing, have a look around. There's more than one way to skin a cat. And there's people here today, there's colleges here today that can help you with that direction as well. Or there's a career clinics down the back there. Come in and talk to us. We'll get you started anyway. We won't get you finished, but we'll get you started. So, again, is change the right thing to do? It depends on where you are. That's the human brain. So, if you're in a job that you're completely stressed, miserable, there are techniques. How you think about your job can change how you feel about your job, and maybe you'll stay there. And that's what I talk to corporates about. And I can talk to individuals as well, because you mightn't have the skill set to follow your passion either. But the human brain, so there's kind of 3 layers. I won't go into neuroscience today. There's 3 layers. The first layer is a little pea-sized thing called the amygdala. So that's the most ancient part of all living beings. It's the lizard brain. Always hungry, always horny, always on the alert. And the reason I say that, because its job is to keep you alive, keep the species alive, and to protect yourself. That's always on. Around that then you have various bodies. One of them is called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is how you set up your schema. So how you were reared from you were a baby to your community, to your institutions, to your politics, that's your schema, and that's recorded in your hippocampus. That guy tells the amygdala to stay switched off. Then the outer brain then is your executive function. Not many animals have that. Humans kind of have it. But if you come under pervasive stress, what can happen in the brain is your hippocampus can shrink and your amygdala can enlarge, which means that you're always on the alert, always on, anxious, and it feeds into various mental health problems, essentially. Now, if the stress alleviates, the amygdala may not shrink. Your hippocampus will grow back to its size, but the amygdala may not shrink. That's a problem. Biologically, we've all heard of dopamine. We hear about dopamine hits. Well, there's no such thing really as a dopamine hit. Dopamine is your motivational neurotransmitter. So there's avoidance motivation and there's approach motivation. Adrenaline is synthesized from dopamine. So, again, if you come under stress, your adrenaline kicks in, glucocorticoids coursing all over your body, fight or flight kicks in. That's toxic if you're under constant stress. Now, in the old days, the human body was designed for 3 to 5 minutes of stress. You're either running after your dinner or you're running away from being somebody else's dinner. After 5 minutes, either you're done or you've got your dinner, one or the other. Nowadays, we turn that stress response into a 30-year stress response. It's very, very poisonous to the body. Paying a mortgage and trying to hold down a job. And holding down a job you don't like, well, do you know? So now again, what we're talking about is pervasive stress. We actually pay for the right amount of stress. I mean, we go bungee jump and roller coaster riding, do you know? But pervasive stress isn't a good thing. So that's maybe one of the reasons again, why you should change or why you shouldn't change, which is going to cause you the most stress. So really the price you pay is, well, you get to pick your poison. When you do decide to change, you have all these roadblocks that come up, detours and speed bumps. I told you about my speed bump. I just couldn't go to college full time, but there was a way around it. Imagine your brain ending up like that. So really, when you are thinking of change or staying the same, you've probably seen this diagram before. Anybody seen this? Ikigai. You're familiar with Ikigai. It's a Japanese term. So what are you good at? What do you love? What does the world need? And what can you be paid for? So again, picking your poison, what you're good at, the world might not need it. So you do have to consider that. Your passion, does the world need it? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. The key point I'm making here, although there may be a gap in the market for your passion, there may not be a market in the gap. So you do have to take a few things into consideration to get yourself in the right. But pick the second best option for yourself as well. Now, one of the pros and cons is competition. So the positive side of it is that if you're going to a job, or the negative side is you are competing with people that have way more experience than you if you are changing. But the positive side of that is that the employer might be looking for somebody just like you with the experience that you're bringing from another business over to your new business. Commitment. A new employer can question your commitment. Why is this guy coming from dentistry and he now wants to be a fireman? That might not happen, but it might, but the other side of it is the passion you bring with you might be just the thing the employer is looking for as well. Security. Remember, if you are changing, you're changing from something that you knew well for the last 10, 15, 20 years. That can be very, very difficult to leave. And often the hardest thing we can do is go into the unknown. But again, the benefit, the trade-off is you get to do what you really, really want to do. Career progression. Again, going back to the competition, you're competing with people as they're climbing up the ladder. They're way ahead of you. You need to ask yourself, do you have the skills that it takes to follow what you're going to follow? Again, go back to what I was talking about earlier. There are ways of getting the skills. And when I'm talking about skills, actually, I mean, I'm a proponent of lifelong learning. Even if you're not changing career, you should be continuously upskilling yourself. Anyway, there's a story, it's from Notre Dame University. It's called the Nun Study. It began in 1984 and it's still ongoing, where this order of nuns donated themselves to science, dead and alive. There was one nun in particular, Sister Bernadette. She was educated early on in life, but she was always curious. She kept educating herself. And as she got old, one of the skills she had, she was able to tell the time of day to within a minute or two of accuracy without looking at a clock. After she died, and they did the autopsy on her and they did the brain scan, they discovered that she had lesions of advanced Alzheimer's, but she showed none of the symptoms while she was alive. The reason being because she was always learning that when the neuron for a certain memory dissipated, she'd already overwritten that memory with another neuron, and when it died, another neuron, her brain plasticity was, how you increase your brain plasticity is you exercise it. If you're going to run a marathon, you don't just put on a pair of runners and run. You actually practice for a few months beforehand. She'd been practicing her whole life. The reason I have slides is so I don't go off on tangents like that. Imposter syndrome. So it's one of the things that can prevent us from change is imposter syndrome. Who here feels like an imposter? Few people. We sometimes we don't have the confidence to believe in ourselves enough to change and do what we really want. But it's important to look at the value that you have on yourself. Now, the other side of it is, it's also important to listen to what your imposter syndrome is telling you. Imposter syndrome is there, it's to protect us. It's to protect us from going into dangerous situations, where we're feeling a bit. You don't want to feel too cocky going into danger. I mean, we all know a narcissist. Do they have imposter syndrome? Absolutely not. But most of us suffer it from time to time, and it is telling us something. Listen to it. A technique in CBT is you write down a fact that you believe, but then dissect it, analyze it, and say, is it really a fact, or is it just what I think? So if you feel that you're not good enough to do something, write it down. And the other thing by writing it down is you're organizing your thoughts, whereas if you don't write it down, the thoughts are spinning around in the head. So the best way to start, if you're considering a change or you're considering staying, is with a personal vision and mission statement, and I would add values to that as well. It's a paragraph that encapsulates all that you want to be, do, and have in your life and in your career and in your family. The two main parts of it are, excuse me, well, it defines what success and excellence looks like to you. It expresses your vision for where you want to be, and it reflects your values, goals, purpose in how you want to operate in the world. So it's two parts. There's a map, and so your vision is where you want to go, and your mission is your map. So I'm going to leave you with this. Wind extinguishes a candle and energizes a fire. You want to be the fire and wish for the wind. That's from Nassim Taleb. And I'm going to leave you with this final thought today. As I was driving into Limerick today, outside UL, there's a sign up. It says, the community of curious people, something along those lines. So always be curious, like Sister Bernadette. Thank you very much, folks.